Rachel McAlpine, and I was born in 1940, so I'm learning how to be old. This is an episode I recorded about a year ago with the celebrated New Zealand cook and food writer, Lois Daish. She talks about learning how to cook and enjoy her food now that she's also getting older and is cooking for herself alone. For some reason I got a bit carried away with the introduction and the sort of background, but hang in there. Eventually you'll hear Lois's beautiful deep voice and her insights, which are very wise and interesting. Today I'm lucky, well, we're all lucky, because Lois Daish is here to talk about some aspects of food and eating in old age. Because the whole food scenario changes as we start to get old, doesn't it? Now, if you're a Kiwi, you'll be very familiar, I think, with the work of Lois Daish. She was one of New Zealand's best-loved foodies for darn near 50 years. A cook, a restaurateur, and for about 25 years, a regular food writer for the New Zealand Listener. And you'll still see her sometimes, if you're lucky, as a judge or a commentator, because she is part of our national memory of food. When I was young, the only recipe book, and it was in every kitchen, was the Edmonds Cookbook. The majority of recipes, almost all of them, they weren't for meals. They were for baking goods, biscuits, cakes, pikelets, scones, slices, fritters, buns and bread. Not surprising, perhaps, when you think that the publisher was in the business of selling baking powder. So, what was a healthy diet in the 1940s when Lois and I were children? It was meat and 3 vegetables for dinner, plus pudding. We always had pudding. And sometimes it was quite stodgy. It was a good filler if you had a big family like my parents. And by the time I started married life in 1959, dining out was a very big deal. You could do it, but it was always fine dining or nothing. If I remember rightly, you could count the restaurants in Wellington on the fingers of one hand. And Lois Daish was there, easing Kiwis away from the grand tra-la-la, away from the grand traditional European cooking, towards casual, colourful meals, fresh and tasty meals, helping to create a food culture that was far more suited to Aotearoa New Zealand. I think of Lois as the mother of the meals that we take for granted now. By the way, in 1997, Lois Daish was appointed a member of the New Zealand Order of Merit for services to the food industry, and in 2010, she was elected a life member of the New Zealand Guild of Food Writers. So here we are. Are you ready to think about changes in the way we eat in old age? Because I am. Let's just drive a stake in the ground and show people how old we are by saying what we had for breakfast when we were little girls and what we have now.
Right. Well, when I was a little girl, the main breakfast that we had was Vimax, which is a type of, it's a wheat semolina, I think, but you can't buy it now. It's a sort of wheaten porridge, where other people had rolled oats, which to me always seemed really slimy, but my family always had Vimax. I've tried and tried to find Vimax and work out exactly what it is, but I've given up now, and now I eat slimy rolled oats. but quite often I have to put the rolled oats in a bowl the night before and put an equal amount of apple juice and leave that overnight, and then add a spoonful of yogurt or slice up banana or something else.
So that's becher muesli.
Well,
more or less.
It is really.
Yeah. Oh, I remember Vimax. It was weird, wasn't it? But I think you've explained what it is. It was brown, wasn't it? Yeah, so perhaps it was a little bit healthy, but goodness knows we do eat enough wheat now, so fair enough to swap to rolled oats.
Yeah.
Well, my breakfast as a child was probably rolled oats, slimy rolled oats, and milk and brown sugar. Brown sugar is nice. And what did you have for breakfast this morning, Lois?
Well, this morning, a slight variation, because I didn't put my rolled oats and apple juice on to soak last night, but I had some apples that were starting to crinkle up, and so I turned them all into stewed apple yesterday afternoon. So this morning I had stewed apple with Weet-Bix and milk.
Weet-Bix, you're a Weet-Bix kid.
Well, not really. It is really useful if I'm feeling a bit sort of wonky as I was this morning. The Weet-Bix and the stewed apple and I don't think I actually put any yogurt in because I couldn't be bothered getting it out of the fridge. I just milk and cream.
Milk and cream, yes. Well, what I had for breakfast this morning was a fruit salad. I always do that now because I didn't used to eat enough fruit, and this is fun, just one of this, one of that, one of the other thing. And I had granola, which I bought from the supermarket, not too sweet a one, but I'd had toasted a bunch of seeds. It's very yummy. And actually I have both yogurt on it and kefir, milk kefir. I do quite a lot of fermenting stuff, and it's kind of for fun. I mean, I learned it was good for me, so that's a good excuse. And it's very yummy, and I have pretty much the same thing every morning. So
is the granola crunchy?
Yeah, it's crunchy. Yeah, not slimy, but crunchy.
No, and I do sort of like it, but I avoid it because I've got terrible teeth.
Oh,
and
yeah.
anything, little crunchy things and you mentioned seeds and things just get lodged between all my wonky teeth.
Yes, I think that's very common with older people.
Teeth is such a critical part of eating well as having teeth to do the processing.
Yeah,
and that's I think it's one of the reasons that a lot of old people start not eating well is simply because the teeth can't manage.
Pretty alarming, isn't it, when a tooth sort of breaks because you're just eating an apple or something simple like that. Yeah, that changes things, doesn't it? And you've got lots of information that you've gained over many decades of being a wonderful food writer and chef.
I don't like being called a chef. Chef has come to mean just somebody who cooks for a living. But to me, it's got a different sort of cast to it. It's sort of self-important kind of thing. I don't know. So I would never, ever call myself a chef. I don't cook a lot of pasta because I'm not so keen on it, but I always thought that there was something you did. You cook the pasta in a lot of water, salted water, and then you combine the cooked pasta with a sauce or some vegetables or whatever it is going to be. But this article in the Guardian this morning talked about one pot pasta, where you cook the pasta, the raw pasta, in the same pot but with plenty of water as the other ingredients, the sauce ingredients, and you just cook it away and so usually for, I guess, at least 15 minutes to make sure the pasta's properly cooked. And then it's all done. It ends up something like a minestrone. But from the beginning to the end, when you eat it, it's all in one pot. And so I've only done this once last night. but I'm going to have that among my little repertoire of things I do often, I think.
Yeah.
And it will encourage me to eat more pasta, and it will be interesting to see how it works.
It seems so obvious and weird. I will definitely be trying this, yeah. And brand new trick. One pot stuff I do a lot, of course, because that's such a blessing when you're on your own, and when cooking is a bit of a struggle in some ways, although we both do it at least once a day, don't we? Okay, Lois, what's the next thing you'd like to talk about in terms of eating when we're old?
I think it's very important to listen to your gut, because we've had the same gut, each of us, from the time we were born till now. Sometimes our gut causes us problems and sometimes it doesn't. But if you are very observant and listen to what the digestive process is doing once you've eaten, I think that can give a very good idea of what to eat that's going to give you a happy gut.
Yes.
And I think it does change over time. Things that I used to just eat easily, now my gut seems to be a bit more sensitive, so I avoid them.
Like what?
Well, tomatoes and onions. I find I'm watchful about the amount, quantity of both of those things.
So your gut feels uncomfortable, or
yes, or
heartburn, or something like that.
Heartburn, or diarrhea, or a lot of farting, or all those things that sort of say to me, your gut didn't like that very much.
So true. Now, one of the things that I've picked up on lately is, so tonight there's a dance rehearsal with my dance group, and boy, I feel like I'm just like my mother was. I get to the dance rehearsal, I've had my dinner, and I'm just little farts all the time. And last week I looked up on Google, what foods don't make you fart? Because I didn't used to, not like that. And nobody says they notice, but it can't go on. It's not good. So I looked up foods that are going to be okay, and I know an egg was one. I've forgotten what the other one was, but perhaps it was courgettes. So I think I had an egg and some courgettes on toast or something or rather like that. But I will look it up again and make sure I do that, because that's a change and not one that people talk about very much.
No, and it is, maybe when you're old you have less control over the fatting process. But I think it's probably quite common as you get older and walking up. I notice, because I have stairs in my house. Walking up the stairs, you can go bat.
Yes,
and it probably doesn't matter, but it is. You don't want it to happen.
Not all the time when you're out.
No. Other people around, and there was the smell aspect of it as well.
That's not nice, really. Yeah. Actually, in my 30s and 40s, I had sore throats all the time. And turned out that was to do with digestion. Like heaps of people, I had acid reflux. And eventually I found that homemade kombucha was the one I've settled on. There's a little glass of that in the morning. Fixes me. But that's, again, you can read a million articles and so on, but sooner or later you've got to find out what helps you in your gut.
Yes.
And no one can actually figure that out except you paying attention, you mentioned.
You just have to pay attention to it and not think, that's nothing, but try to analyse without being too silly about it, but just register, that's what happened when I ate
such and
that,
such.
And make these little, just maybe minor adjustments, or eat something for lunch, but not eat that in the evening. So there's lots of variables with it, but I think you can do much better if you pay attention.
It does help. So Lois, if I looked in your pantry and your fridge, what would I always find there?
I had a good lesson from my friend Jenny Yee, who's a New Zealand Chinese person who is a very good cook, and she maintains 2 pantries, her Asian pantry and her European pantry, just to keep so the whole thing isn't quite such a jumble. And I think that's one reason why, because I don't cook a lot of Asian food, I try to limit what's in my pantry to things that I'm going to keep using all the time. Otherwise, you do end up with looking at the best by dates and think, oh, my goodness, that's 3 years past this best by. Perhaps I better throw that out. So I keep trying to limit what's there to things that I will actually use. It doesn't entirely work, because I do still look at things and see that it's ancient, and then I don't take risks, I just throw it out then. So my things would be principally to do with European cooking, Western cooking. And in the fridge, one thing I always like to have in my fridge is a bowl of lettuce, because I buy a nice lettuce at Common Sense Organics, and soak it, dry it, and have it in a bowl of separate leaves all ready to eat, in a glass bowl with a plate over the top. And quite often I just feel as if I need some leaves. Leaves, and I don't necessarily want to be cooking spinach or silver beet or something. So I can reach into my glass bowl of lettuce and pull out some lettuce and eat it.
Yeah, I've got a lettuce spinner. Have you got one of them?
I used to have. I haven't had one for a long time now. I tend to just shake with my hands.
Yes, I used to do it with put the washed lettuce leaves in a tea towel and swing it round and round and round. That was fun. But the lettuce spinner is even better, because you can leave it in that's your bowl, and it's nice and airtight and so on. But now I'm a great fan of salads, and old enough to remember when salad meant getting an iceberg lettuce, which are delicious, by the way, and chopping it finely like sauerkraut or something, and throwing everything into it, everything. Eggs, cheese, nuts, but fruit, tomatoes, a great jumble. And then putting what was that dreadful dressing we used to have?
Sweetened condensed milk.
Sweetened condensed milk dressing on it. And that was what I was brought up with, and you were too, probably not. Oh, no. You clever mother you had then.
No, why not? She did. I don't know. She didn't like that, and because I spent some of my childhood, obviously, with my family in New York. Yeah. So my mother would have never come across that.
No, of course not. No.
So she made that boiled dressing.
Oh yes, boiled dressing. I remember that too. Was it like a sauce?
Sort of like a white.
Yeah.
I haven't made it for so long. Sort of white sauce, but with vinegar.
That's a blast from the past. Yeah.
It's an American thing.
My equivalent was going to Switzerland, living in Geneva for 4 years. When I was 21, we left, me and my husband. And there I was totally astonished. Every vegetable was given its own, was honoured, was on a plate by itself. The asparagus, a plate of radishes that you just ate with butter and salt. And the whole thing was a revelation. But that's another story. Let's get back to you.
But it is interesting that some things are a revelation, and it just sort of opens your taste buds to something, and you never forget. Like you mentioned the radishes with butter and salt and things. The first time you ate that would have been a revelation.
It was,
because in New Zealand we didn't usually have butter with our radish.
No, you usually just chop them up and threw them into the salad. Yeah, and I mean, it did change me forever. I hardly ever have a meal, apart from breakfast, that doesn't have a salad, an element of salad there somewhere, or maybe it is a salad. Just for example, yeah. The last thing I wanted to talk to you about today, because this could go on all day otherwise, is it's about The process of preparing and eating a meal, and why Uber Eats is something, or not just Uber Eats, but why food deliveries to your door is something you just don't do.
No, I enjoy the whole. Enjoy is probably a bit strong, but I do like being involved in the whole process of producing what I'm going to eat, because although I say I'm not a chef, I did work in restaurants for 25 years, so I do enjoy the whole process of getting the raw materials, preparing them, cleaning them, deciding what to put with what, and then gradually evolves into something that's going to go in my mouth. And I like that, being involved in that whole progression. And I even, to some extent, quite enjoy the cleaning up afterwards, because that seems to be the final stage of the preparation, the eating, and then the cleaning up. That feels to me appropriate. Although my partner Michael always used to say, she who cooks the dinner doesn't wash the dishes. So he always cleaned up afterwards. And now with myself, I usually shut the door of the kitchen and leave the washing up till the next day, so there is that gap. But it's not because I undervalue the process of cleaning up, but I'm just too tired by the time I finish eating to do anything else. So shut the door, put some water in the things that might go all stuck in overnight, and leave it at that.
Your one pot.
my one pot, my one bowl, my one fork. Because we're cooking, for so many of us as we're older, is to a large extent cooking for one.
Yes.
And that one person is yourself. And that is a very, very different thing from cooking for somebody else, in which what's in the front of your mind is, will he like it? Will he eat it? Will he enjoy it? And it's often the she cooking for the he. When you remove that other person, it opens up a whole different way of looking at what you're going to eat, because you're just looking at pleasing yourself and not looking across the table to see what his response is.
I'm sure that's very true. It's a long time since I cooked for a family or a
he
bloke. Yes. But I think there's something earnest but also something frivolous about the way I cook for myself. Really, I can do some very silly things that often turn out to be yummy, but I never remember what they are, so I never do them again.
No, and you probably won't do it again. I think that opens up the ability, well, I'm just doing this now, but no, I'm not going to note it down or anything, because it might pop up again, but probably it won't.
Yes, what does it matter? There's plenty of other wonderful foods to eat.
Yes,
that please us and please our guts.
Yes.
Yeah.
And not thinking about anybody else's gut, just your own.
Yeah, it's quite enough. One at a time.
Yeah.
Lois, thank you very, very, very much. I've so enjoyed talking to you.
So that's enough for now?
That's enough for now, and I will definitely be coming back to you one of these days.
It helps me to be working out what I think.
Oh.
Sometimes you don't know what you think until you say it.
That is so true. That is so true. Same for me. It helps. Now, Lois and I were wondering what nursery rhyme would go with this theme, and we settled on Jack Sprat. It's a very strange little rhyme. A happy... I don't know, it's about a married couple who have a beautiful compromise, since they've got very different tastes in food. Imagine them sitting down to a roast dinner and divvying up the meat to suit their tastes. Fat for him, no. Fat for her, lean for him. Today, we wouldn't take this at face value of a matter of taste. We'd be thinking Jack was on a paleo diet and his wife was on a keto diet. There's a tune, but I'm not sure what it is. Jack Sprat could eat no fat. His wife could eat no lean. And so between the two of them, they licked the platter clean. I hope you enjoyed listening to Lois Daish and thinking your own thoughts about how your own food habits have changed, no matter how old you are. Last but not least, if you like this podcast, please follow it, and then you'll find out every time a new episode comes out. And if you give it some stars, that makes you a star in my eyes. Thank you very much. That's all. I'm done. Bye for now.